Hello everyone, welcome to another intuition painting. Small paintings where I follow nothing but my intuition, and I encourage all of you to do the same. Today we are going to paint this sunset on the river. And as always, I'm using a 6x6 inch piece of a Frederick's canvas sheet that I've cut. And I'm going to start with my 1/2 inch flat, my old scrubby one, some matte medium, and some yellow ochre. I'm just gonna quickly scrub this onto the background, and that's gonna be the underpainting. I want to make sure that this painting is very warm and has a really nice glow to it, but also I'm gonna let a lot of this underpainting show through for the brightest part of the painting. So I'm just gonna scrub this on real quick. Again, I don't need to worry about brush stroke marks. I really just need to focus on covering all of the white of the canvas. That's really all that's important. I'm just smoothing it out a little bit simply because some of it is going to show. All right, now I've cleaned off my brush and I'm using some burnt sienna. Sorry, stepping on my camera cable again. I'm just lightly sketching out where my horizon is. I don't believe I dried this canvas. It doesn't matter because these colors are going to be used interchangeably throughout the painting anyway. So I'm just kind of feeling out where I want things. I decided I wanted some trees in the distance there, and I'm just very loosely sketching them out, as you can see. Since it's going to be a nighttime scene and those are in the distance, they don't need a lot of detail. I don't need to go spending a lot of time making very distinct trunks or, whatever. Here I'm still just using burnt sienna. I'm just scumbling in where I want a big clump of trees. Now, admittedly, this painting is based on another painting that I did in the last couple of months, but kind of loosely based on it. I'm pretty sure I'm using different colors and different techniques. I just looked at the other painting that I did and kind of used that as a starting point for this one. So I've sketched out a little clump of trees and a piece of land close by, and both of those are creating a little bit of a river. I like leaving the blank spaces in there so that the sky can show through. Now I'm on to Fuzzbert, and I picked up some Cad Red Medium with some yellow oxide, just kind of playing with the color mixtures to see what I want going on in here. I know I want it to be a sunset, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted the sky to look like aside from that, clouds or smooth or whatever. So I'm really just kind of messing here and putting this color on and seeing what happens. But notice I'm leaving that yellow oxide down toward the horizon. That is pretty much going to be the color of the sky in that area. But I'm going to scrub this throughout pretty much the rest of it. And all these little openings in the trees, the little sky windows, I'm going to dab some of this color in there. The one thing that I feel like is really important in this painting is to not get real tight. I'm not trying to get in there and, cut right up to the trees. Some of that yellow is going to stay showing. Some of the trees are going to end up getting covered up by the sky colors. It's just really important that I work loosely here, and that's my goal. It's that same color, just putting a hint of the reflection in the water, using up and down or side to side brush strokes here. That's going to help it feel more like a reflection than if I scumble in all different directions like I did in the sky. All right, some burnt sienna on a clean brush. I'm going to mix that with some Mars black. I don't want it to be pure black. I still want to be able to just see a little hint of brown to it. A little matte medium just to make it a little bit smoother, and I'm going to lightly scumble it onto this tree shape. I'm making it a point to leave at least a little bit of that first layer of burnt sienna showing, especially around the edges. That's just going to help give it a little bit more of a glow effect, that there's light coming through some of the outer areas so that it looks like it's glowing from the light behind it. Especially around the edges of the tree, I'm just kind of dabbing. Gives it a little bit of an effect like maybe there's some leaves there. Filling in the horizon in the back as well. And the ground for the little land area that the tree is sitting on. And even these trees in the back. And I'm definitely taking care to leave just a hint of that burnt sienna showing. And the ground. And even the tree trunks. And notice how I'm just scratching them in with the tip of that brush, and it's a puffy old brush. I'm not getting precise lines. They're very fuzzy. They're kind of chaotic, but they're at a distance, and so I can't see. We wouldn't be able to see a lot of that detail, so it's perfectly okay. That's actually preferable. If those tree trunks are too crisp and defined, it's going to seem weird because you wouldn't see that amount of detail at a distance. Just finish up the land here. A little bit of matte medium with that nice transparent color, and I'm just going to work on dragging that straight down from the edge of the land just to create a subtle reflection. I don't want to get real crazy with the reflections here. I know ultimately I probably could have gone a little more intense with the reflection, but I wanted the brightness of the sky to stand out in the water more than anything else. So just a nice transparent streak. And that's really all I'm going to do with the reflections. More black, so this mixture is going to be mostly black. And I'm going to start darkening some of these areas. Allow a little bit of those previous layers that are a little lighter to show, because that's how you're going to get a bit more of a glow from the sunset light. If it's just flat black, it's going to seem boring. It's not going to seem very... It's just going to seem like a flat silhouette. But by allowing some of these areas to be much, much darker and some of them to be just a hint lighter, we do get a sense that there is some light from the sky reflecting on the trees and the ground. Especially around this side of the land. On the right there, we're going to make that nice and dark, as well as the tree. Again, I'm really just picking up black. Kind of dabbing it there, allowing it to go over top of that red that I've already put in the sky. Not worried about trunks in this little clump of trees just yet. We'll deal with that later. See how much of that previous color I left showing in there. Clean brush, just some matte medium and some yellow oxide. A little bit more of a transparent version. Let's try and bridge the gap between the underpainting and that red that I put in. So it's the exact same color as the underpainting. I felt like that paint was a little transparent. It wasn't really covering the line quite as much as I wanted it to. So I'm just going to pick up more of the yellow and no more matte medium. And there I was getting a little bit more coverage. Working back and forth in the layers of a sky, for me, I feel like makes it much more exciting than just a single layer, especially if the sky is kind of your focus. If everything else is very dark, then the area that's brightly colored, which would be the sky here, is going to be the area of focus. And while you certainly can throw down a sky in a single layer, if it's what you are wanting the viewer to really pay attention to, it's going to be much more exciting if you spend some time working on a few layers. So that's why I'm doing the sky like this today. Pull a bit of that up into the top. It'll seem like light reflecting on the bottom of clouds. And just punch that brightness between the trees there. I'm pretty sure that red is at least mostly dry, so this isn't really blending in with it so much as it's just kind of layering into it. Into that color in the water, again, mostly horizontal or vertical brush strokes, not a lot of scumbling in random directions. And I'm applying it nice and thin so it doesn't completely obliterate those dark reflections that I put in there. So they're still there, they're just a little more subtle, so that sky can kind of take over in the water. Let's add a little bit of burnt sienna to it. I'm just kind of experimenting with the colors here. Like I said, I wasn't really sure, but I decided to try that and see what happened. And that felt a little more shadowy to me than I really wanted. So since I started adding it, I just continue for a minute just so I don't have one spot that looks a little different from everything else, but I don't go back to that color mixture. Whatever you put in the sky, you have to put in the water. You want to make sure that you sell that the water is reflecting the sky. I'm going to pick up some of that red again, a little bit of matte medium, just the red. And let's start working some of that in. That was a really exciting pop of color, I felt like. And I am working on creating a bit of some clouds, a little more impressionist, a little more abstracted than, clouds that I've done a lot in the past. And it's really just with a little bit of dabbing and pulling, and a lot of those colors that are in the sky right now are still wet. So this is kind of blending with it a little bit. But if your sky is completely dry, it's not a problem. Don't worry about that. That red is really exciting in the sky, I feel like. It's almost a shocking color to see in a sky, particularly with such a dark foreground. But that's one of the things that I really liked about the original painting that I did, and one of the reasons I wanted to do that for this painting. It's not a color I put in the sky a lot, and so it was kind of calling to me. Again, a hint of that in the water. More of that yellow-red mixture. Just a little bit more back and forth. Yellow, then into the red mixtures, and back into yellow. As many times as you want to get the look that you want. The one thing I did in this painting that I did not do in my original painting was create some shadows in the sky, in the clouds. I felt like that was kind of lacking, at least in this one. It was so bright. I wanted to do something to make the brightness not quite so overwhelming. So we're going to put some shadows in the clouds here in a minute, and that was probably my favorite part of this painting. And it was a little scary because, sometimes when you follow your intuition and it says, hey, you should totally do this, a lot of times those things are scary. But, if you got this far and you ruined it with an idea that you had to try, you can get this far again and do it again and not do that. So here's what I mean. This is ultramarine blue. I'm mixing it with that red to get a very dark color. It's almost kind of purpley, but you're not really going to get purple with these two colors. It's very, very dark. And I was terrified, especially once I put that plop down. I thought, uh-oh, this might be the end of the painting. But I'm just going to lightly scumble it in there. Same brush stroke I've been using this whole time. Light pressure on this brush and just kind of scrubbing it around a little bit. There's a lot of paint on this brush, so I do have to be careful with the amount of pressure that I put on it. Darkening it up a little, just plopping down a bit more of that paint. And I was really happy with that color in the clouds. A little bit more, exact same color. Trying to keep a nice light touch. A little hint of that reflection in the water. Much darker. Just a heavier application of the paint. It's the same mixture. Ultramarine blue and cad red medium just makes such a beautiful dark color. Just a hint of violet. It's almost a chromatic black with a hint of violet to it. It's a really, really fun color to use. Now I'm going to add more red to it, so it's a nice transition into a bit of a brighter color, but it's really the same. So it's the same mixture, the blue and red. There's just more red to it, so it's not going to be quite as dark as the first application at the top. Just like in the Vintage Flowers video, I kind of wanted to direct the viewer's eye toward the horizon, toward where the setting sun is going to be. And so I'm kind of doing that by almost creating a bit of a vignette surrounding it with darkness on all of the sides, so that pushes your eye toward the bright area. Clean brush, more yellow. I'm going to mix it with a hint of white. And I felt like that color was way too chalky. I just wanted to scumble a bit of it on to brighten the area up a tiny bit, but that felt super chalky to me. So I'm going to add some cad yellow to it, which I felt like brightened it up more, but didn't make it quite as chalky. Both the titanium white and the yellow oxide tend to be a little chalky, so both of them together were really bad. And that is much closer to what I was wanting. Just making sure it's bright there. Hint of it between those trees, at least the ones closest to the sun. Just a little bit brighter right there at the very, very bottom. And in the water, just a light scratch of that color. Little yellow oxide and matte medium, and I'm just bridging the gap between the red and that bright yellow just one more time. Just very light, just dabbing, no blending. I'm not trying to cover anything. A little hint of red to that mixture, and I'm going to create a few subtle highlights on the bottom of these dark clouds. Again, I was a little afraid, just kind of going for it, but I think it ended up looking exactly like I wanted it. If you're going to have dark clouds, they have to have a reflection on them. And if the sun is setting, that reflection is going to be on the bottom. Clean brush. More cad yellow. I'm going to mix it with some Mars black, which make just a beautiful dark green. It's one of my favorite ways to make green. A little bit of the burnt sienna in it just to warm it up a little bit. Make sure it's not quite such a sour green. We don't want a real sour green in this. Super, super dark. And I'm just going to dab it in to the side of the tree that's closest to the sun. Don't let it be too bright of a green. That's going to throw everything off. This is just a suggestion of green. I hadn't planned on doing the green, which is why I put so much attention into, the 3 different layers of the dark. But I felt like the green would be a really nice complement to the red in the sky. And I knew that with the Mars black, I could do it very subtly. Scumble a bit of that onto the land here. That was a bit intense, but no problem. I'm just going to pick up some black and just same brush stroke. Put that area on the far right of the tree and the ground back into shadow. Notice I did not put any of that green into the distant hills or land or trees. Since those are very distant, we're just going to let them be dark like that, and that's going to keep them in the background. Just brighten up a couple of spots with ever so slightly brighter of a green. It's really not much brighter. I was really tempted to go even brighter in a few spots, but I felt like that would really take away from the feeling of nighttime. On to my number 3 round. I've got cad yellow, medium, and white. I'm going to decide. I didn't have any idea where I wanted the sun. I hadn't really thought about that and planned for it real well. I decided that was the best spot. Just put it down and dab it with your finger. That kind of blurs it naturally so it doesn't have a real hard line. I think that makes a distant sun look really nice. So just blop it down and then dab it with your finger. I'm going to smear a little bit up and a little bit down. Tiny hint of that in the water right below. Just some white. And just really punch some brightness in the center of that sun. Roll a little matte medium into there. And I'm going to play with a couple of reflections on the surface of the water here. Make sure it's horizontal. Don't angle those lines to follow the river, because that's going to make it look like your river is up on a wall rather than laying flat. Make those lines horizontal. Let them be a little broken, not real evenly spaced. You just want to kind of scratch some in. Much thicker application of that bright paint back there, just to make sure that the water in the very distance has some good brightness to it. Long liner, getting more of that green-black mixture. It's mostly just black because my green is pretty much dried out. And of course this brush has a little extra water on it. And I'm just going to scratch in some tree trunks. Don't get real precise with them here. It's very dark. You might not see a lot of it. And if you get a tree trunk over a piece of the tree you don't want it, just wipe it away with your finger. I felt like I was getting a little too tight with them here, so I almost felt like they were getting away from me a bit. See how you can just wipe it away? See, I was way too tight with those tree branches there. A little more transparent. There we go. Much better. Just a couple little scratchy bits here and there to give the idea that there's a bunch of trees and branches in there. And that's it for the branches. Back to my Fuzzbert and just some black. I'm just gonna darken up where the land meets the water, and I felt like the river was a little bright around that side at the bottom of the land there, so I'm gonna darken that a bit. I don't know that it would have quite that much light on it. Yeah, with that little dark edge at the bottom, I felt like that kind of sold the idea that the land is moving uphill away from the water a little bit. It seemed a little flat and strange to me until then. Just streaking down some of that thin color with some matte medium. Just blur over the top there, and once I did that, I felt like that was much closer to what I was going for. Just some matte medium to help break up a little bit of those streaky bits that got away from me. A little bit more yellow oxide just for a couple suggestions of highlights across the surface of the water. I needed to dry that because I was streaking it. I don't know if you can tell, I was getting a little impatient. It was the end of a very long day. There we go. Much better. And that is all there is to this painting. Thank you so much to my sponsor Fredericks for providing these awesome canvases. Get a set of your own. There's a link in the video description below. Don't forget to check out my blog where you will find a little post about this painting as well as a bit of a critique on myself. Thank you so much everyone for watching and painting along, and I will see you next time.